We're doing something different today. We're actually reviewing a game which happened yesterday. It was AS Roma 2, Lazio nil. A first Derby della Capitale win for Roma in almost 3 years. As a Roma fan, I was delighted. But we've also got a Lazio fan with me today, all the way from Canada. We've got Jerry Mancini. How are you, Jerry?
Fantastic, except for the loss, but yeah, I can't complain. I'm good.
Um, so you're pretty much well known on Twitter to giving it a lot, especially to Roma fans and to Juventus fans. I'm going in first question. How did it how did it feel yesterday? Because you were very gracious, and I would admit it did it. I did it in the reverse fixture last this season. It does make you feel better when you've seen that from other supporters, doesn't it?
No, you're right. It actually does, and that was the first thing that actually came to my mind as to why I extended to congratulate certain Roma fans is because of what they offer towards Lazio fans. So you're absolutely right. It does make it feel better that there are certain Roma fans who respect towards the Lazio fans. But you know what? It is what it is. You don't want to lose the derby, but at the same time, I think it was much more than just losing the derby. It's the last three games of how they overall performance of how they've been playing in it, and I think that is the root of what makes it even worse. Like losing's one thing, but not showing up in a derby and not giving complete effort is just unacceptable for me.
Yeah, you actually said that to me in a direct message yesterday. We were talking, what, probably 25, 30 minutes after the game. You sounded quite despondent, and he said it's not the manner of the defeat, it's the performance. And I come across like the second half performance from Lazio was quite poor. I felt that Roma quite dominated the game, bar two opportunities that Lazio got in. Was it Immobile twice testing Fusato, I think it was. But apart from that, Roma really controlled the second half. Is that what you got from the second half performance?
I felt that as the game progressed, Roma's confidence escalated higher. Like when you give them a chance to believe and try to beat a top team finally this season, like that goes a long way. And as the game progressed, the opposite happened for Lazio, where they started to look very frustrated. They weren't able to really connect any passes. And I think the biggest issue was that they were so slow from the get go. I don't know where this slow build up from the back and passing back and forth and unable to make one touch passes very quick. As in the first time they played against Roma, we were moving the ball with ease, quickly, and everybody was on page. I think the loss of Joaquin Correa yesterday really disrupted the flow of the game as well for Lazio because the partnership of Immobile with Marici is not going to work. And two players that you can say maybe are kind of similar in some ways, but that Marici needs crosses into the box. And
Mm.
the thing is that Chino Immobile is not the kind of guy to give him that service and vice versa, where Marici is not going to give the service to Immobile. Immobile relies on someone to kind of give him the passes into the box or make the runs behind the defense. And that's where Correa really does well with Immobile because his speed draws players away from him. And he can also play with Immobile where he knows where he'll be, where he'll make the runs behind the defense. So a guy like Andrea Pereira would have been much more suitable towards this match, but that was a lot of questionable decisions by Simone Inzaghi that kind of had me scratching my head and not sure why as to why he made his choices, but it is what it is.
That was actually going to be my next question. Do you think that Andreas Pereira would have been a much better fit than Marici up top, and he could have played like a 3-5-1-1 with Pereira floating in behind Immobile and making those late runs in behind the Roma defence, which has conceded a shed load of goals this season, especially I think especially in the last couple of months where the defence has been really creaky. Do you think Pereira would have been a better fit to start off with?
Oh, absolutely. And the one advantage he would have given is his speed, the ability to chase down balls, hold it down in the corner. A lot of the time, Marici just couldn't outrun any of Roma's defenders, not one, and that's scary because that's like their B squad of defenders. If you were to ask me, aside from Gianluca Mancini, not all of those of Roma's defense has been spectacular this season. You can probably vouch for that. Who Ibanez at times has looked very poor. Karsdorp has been really good this season. I think
Yeah,
he's been probably your best player maybe this year, and the way
he's one of the three top players that played for Roma this season. Him, Veratu, and Spinazzola.
So for me, it's Pareto is the guy who should have paired up with Immobile. And you're right. Even if you don't, if you play him behind Cheeto, like this, his ability to like chase down balls, make passes, that's where he comes more effective. Ricci is really bad with his feet, like very bad, and he doesn't offer anything in the area of like passing, shooting. So it was a poor decision. But the only thing I can think of is that Inzaghi is choosing to get Marici out there for two reasons. Either because he's contracted and you need to see what you have because Paredes on loan, or two, you're just playing him so people can see if he has something to offer so you can sell him. Those are the two reasons I can only see why Marici is starting yesterday. And look, he took him off at I think at the 56th minute, and that was it for him. Like, the only performance he's been good in this year was I think Atalanta, which was in the Coppa Italia, and that's not enough for me. There's been no progression with this guy.
What was the transfer fee you guys paid for him in the summer or in the October transfer window?
18.5 million.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's steep.
very steep for a small club.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for Lazio, especially we were talking pre-recording about Latito and being frugal with his money. That's a lot of money to spend on as we were talking, he's 26 and the outlet that he's given to Lazio this season, it's not great. That's a wasted investment.
Yeah, you're right. At the time, I thought that it would pan out, but I kind of was reactionary because I should have done my research of how well he was as a player, and I guess in the Turkish league he was good, and I think he had scored 15 goals last year or 16 in the year before. He had 17, and the stats back him up in the past 2 years. But what Lazio need is not a hold-up player. The way the 3-5-2 doesn't really suit him. So for what he kind of offers, unless you're going to get crosses into the box 90% of the time and you just plant him in the actual goal area, he's really ineffective in a lot of ways. So I've actually seen people consider using him as a center back, which, you know what, I agree with that. With the way he plays, he's not bad defensively. Other than his one mistake against Milan, he's been effective on the back end. I can't say he hasn't, and that's something that maybe would be suited to him. But no forward's ever going to change his position, all of his stuff, just for a team. But yeah, with Marici, I see him either on loan or being sold this summer. What
do you think? It was from Fenerbahce in Turkey?
Yes.
Do you think there could be interest of like getting him back for next season from them, probably on a reduced fee?
I wonder if Latito would take a reduced fee. That's a good question, but apparently they have financial issues, and I'm not even certain if they can afford him. But it's always possible. I know a few English teams are interested in the purchase of in purchasing Vedat Marici. I don't know teams on the top of my head, but there have been two teams that were linked with him, but I just don't see him with the team after this season. Like, that's just me.
No,
What are you
no,
gonna
no,
do?
yeah, that's pretty much, especially with his outlet and what he's given to the club. To be honest, I could see him doing quite well in England. That might type of physicality football might actually do him quite good because Italy, as we all know, whoever's been watching the league, I've been watching it since like 95 or 96. It's very tactical, and you've got to be tactically astute to succeed in Italy. And I don't see his type of style succeeding. I just wanted to ask you, what was your thoughts going into this game, like a couple of days beforehand? Because Lazio beat Parma, thanks to Ciro Immobile, late goal, and then Roma lost against Inter Milan 3-1. And actually played pretty well, but Milan countered right at the end and scored thanks to Lukaku. What was your thoughts going into the derby?
Well, for Lazio, I should have seen this coming because I expected better considering that it was a derby. So I thought that there would be that intensity, that motivation, especially coming off a late fortunate win versus Parma. They should have lost that game if you were to ask me. If it wasn't for Strakosha, we probably wouldn't have the 3 points against Parma. But you know what? It was a third straight performance where there's nothing in there. No pace, no intensity, like I just said, no motivation. And heading into this game, I thought that Lazio would be better than what they were yesterday. But seeing the injury of Correa and Caicedo really hurt them up front. And like we just said, the wrong player was started up front. Pereira has played quite a few times actually this season with Immobile, and I'm shocked that he didn't go with the latter. But there's just so many outcomes that you see a Roma side that just couldn't be a top 6 team. They just haven't looked good, even against Crotone last week, and even actually that was probably one of their best performances. Even that they started off slow, they kind of progressed into that game. But overall, in the recent weeks, Roma hasn't looked convincing, we'll say. And maybe their speech with Fonseca and the fact that he was playing his final home game, and that was kind of some motivation for their side. So at the end of the day, and on a side note, I think that Roma has really disrespected and mistreated Fonseca on so many levels that I'm really curious to see if Mourinho does better than Fonseca. Now, I agree that Fonseca should be doing better in preparing his team against the bigger clubs, absolutely. But there have been a lot of injuries with this side, and form has hurt them. So you got to put that into consideration. And it was a transfer market that many forget that they didn't have much to spend on. So I think Maresh Kumbula was the only signing really that they did this past summer, and they brought on Borja Mariel
And Chris Smalling.
and Chris Smalling, yes. But Chris Smalling was already...
Yeah, he was already in Rome the season before. Yeah, they made it permanent. That deal went to the exact last minutes of the October transfer window.
Yes, that's right. Which have a lot of people thinking if it was a right transaction, if it was wrong because after the time, but that's a whole different topic. But and now people want Chris Smalling out because of his season, of how he went from really good last year to very mediocre this year, and injuries have hurt him. So at the end of the day, Roma came prepared, and this was a Lazio side, like Inzaghi said after the game, that they just weren't mentally strong. And maybe they just checked out after knowing that they weren't going to make the Champions League anymore. But as a professional, you should find that the derby should always get the best out of you, and you should always come in strong. Even with Sena Lulic starting yesterday was another head scratcher. He's just not the player that can play on short days rest 3 times a week. And I think that was his last derby personally. I don't see him playing in another derby again. But and even Acerbi didn't look good yesterday.
No, I did see Acerbi did come out and apologise on social media. I think he picked up an injury or something. He said that an injury, and he wanted to stay on, and then he ended getting sent off, and Edin Dzeko got the better of him. I wanted to ask about the first half. Do you think that Roma scored at the right time? Because Lazio did play pretty well in the first half and did have a couple of good chances with Luis Alberto and Serge Milinkovic-Savic. Sorry, that's me botching it. With his face mask, looking like Undertaker 1994, 1995. Whoever watched wrestling back in the day with his when Undertaker broke his nose. Did you feel that Lazio started well and then conceded at the wrong time with Henrik Mkhitaryan scoring right before halftime?
I thought that Lazio really didn't start that well in the first half hour. I think neither side actually started off
He
well
was
in the
very
first half hour.
cagey. He was
Yes,
very yeah.
and but the last 15 minutes of the game, right before they had scored, Lazio started to turn it up, and they were moving the ball better. They looked more motivated as the game kind of wore on. And Mkhitaryan scores a goal right at the right time. And this is something that Lazio has done frequently this year, is where they concede a goal right before the interval, and it kills them going into the next half because they get demoralized, they lose momentum, and that was a game changer for Roma. And now a lot of people are saying that Iturbi played poorly. Yeah, yes, he did. He did. But I think people forget that he was on a yellow. And
Mm.
another poor decision by Inzaghi was to leave him on, and he took off Mirisic and he took off Stefan Radu. And I thought Radu was our best defender in this game by a mile. He made a lot of timely challenges that prevented Roma from going on clear breaks. He was physical. He really wanted to win yesterday. I thought he was our best player, and we took him out. Now, again, maybe Inzaghi takes him off for physicality, like I don't know, his form or injuries or anything. We don't know about that. Maricic, you see him on the side. He throws a
He
water
was
bottle.
annoyed. Yeah, he
He was
was proper
annoyed.
annoyed. Yeah.
He did not want to come off. So I don't know why you would take Maricic off. This is the thing with Inzaghi. When things don't go his way, he kind of panics. And our depth doesn't really offer much. So once you don't have your starting 11 performing, he doesn't know sometimes where do you go. He kind of makes these panic decisions. So taking off Sena Lulic, you bring on Fadis, which is fine. But then you take off Maricic. Like you had Maricic on the left, you have Lazio on the right. That's what you have to go with for the rest of the game. Like there's no ifs and buts. I like Fadis. I think he still has much to show. It's been a up and down season, but compared to him and Marici, I've seen progression with Fadis, and that's kind of keeps me positive. But you know what, Matic should be the left wing back with Lazio. I like him at center back, and I think he does a good job in the defense, but he's a natural wing back, and it doesn't make sense to convert him to a center back. It's been more of a desperate move because he doesn't trust the players that he has. But next season, I wouldn't suggest starting him at right back. That's just me, though. Maybe many would kind of like argue, but it's hard to find a good wing back, especially
Yeah.
like you can
Especially
get
in Europe.
like you can get a center back, but when you have a wing back such as Lazio and Maricic, you gotta and to have backup wing backs as well. Lulic is gone, so there's one guy gone. You still have Fadis, but you're missing a fourth player to play wing back. So I just don't see this as a long-term solution for Lazio, and they need to sign natural center backs if they're going to stick to the 3-5-2.
I was going to say, is that a stopgap because Luis Felipe was out injured for quite a while and you guys were missing him? And to be honest, he's a really good defender. And all the times that I saw him pre-injury, and he was one of Lazio's best players last season, pre-pandemic. When the pandemic happened, I would say Lazio's form struggled. I don't know if you would agree with me that Lazio's squad last season could not compete for like 3 times a week because you don't have enough players. And I was really, really impressed with Luis Felipe last season. But I just think with the injuries, I wonder if that caught up with Simone Inzaghi and he had to convert Maricic into a centre back because he probably doesn't trust Patrick or Wesley Hoot or
Was Wesley
on
who plays on the
Musacchio?
left. Well, Wesley who plays on the left side, and he could play in the center. I guess he could play on the right if he was to be given that option, but he was cut out of the squad, and with Luis Felipe coming back in, I think that was a big mistake. Now, I think Matteo Musacchio should have been the guy who gets cut out, but we don't know what his contract stipulates, so I think that's a kind of an obstacle there. Yeah, Patrick, he's been good, he's been bad. I think he's shown to be good against the lower mid-table teams. That's where he's kind of performed well because he can compete at that level. But as we've seen against Bayern Munich, as we've seen against some of the bigger clubs, he struggles. He doesn't have that physique, and he kind of doesn't have that technicality. So he kind of he has the respect of Inzaghi. I think Inzaghi rates him highly because of his work ethic. But in a game like with Roma, it just doesn't suit him well. Matteo Musacchio, I would have liked to see him at least play when needed. I know that if you were to start 10 matches, they would have to have signed him at the end of the year. Yeah, that was part of his an option in his clause or his contract. But yeah, just what's the point of bringing Matteo Musacchio to play 2 games? It's been an utter waste for half a season, more waste than money. It's just been one signing after another. I had a guy who sent me what's it called, a transfer list of what Lazio have done the last 2 years. Okay, and as much as we bark at Roma, Lazio have not been any better. I'm gonna pull it up here because I have a photo of it. Yeah, so in the last 2 seasons from Tade, we've signed Morici, Lazzari, Vavro, Fares, Hoot, Reina, Escalante, Musacchio, Akpro, Pereira, Johnny. And this is a lot of dead weight we got here. We got Vavro Vavro now is worth 14 million because we made the Champions League this season. We made Champions League, and I think because we went into the round of 16. So his value went up. And then Lazzari is the only player that's actually panned out. He makes 14 million, but the investment has worked out well. And Hoot was 1 million. Akpro was 2 million. And this is Johnny's 2 million on loan right now.
He's back in Spain, isn't he?
Yeah, he's playing in Spain right now. And these are just a handful of what has gone wrong. Reina probably you can put in the category of being good this year because he's been a good quality backup. But a lot of bad signings that they're not addressing the back end. Like that Morici deal of 18.5 million should have gone to a center back. Like that could have been Kumbula for Lazio.
Yeah, that was the rumor, wasn't it, last summer that Marouš Kumbula was going to, I think it was either join a couple of clubs. It was Roma, I think maybe Napoli and Lazio. And I think Inter Milan, And I was thinking he's either going to go to Inter or Lazio. I had no inkling that Roma were after him because Roma were always seeking to get Chris Smalling in. But when that got over the line, I was thinking, we've got a real deal here. And he's played well in bits and pieces this season. I thought he played pretty well last night when he came on. And I think Kumbula would have been a good fit for Lazio. I don't know if you would agree with me.
No, absolutely.
Especially after last season where he did well for Hellas.
Well, he's only 20 years old, so yeah. It's kind of hard to say he's a bust. He would have been the ideal player to start building their back end with some youth, along with Luis Felipe. That's not the case now, and now making only Europa League, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach the transfer market. And then you got on top of that the sale of Salernitana, where with Latito's looking at an owner out in London that might be interested. I was reading today, so there's a lot of questions. But in regards to the back end with Kumbula, I think he would have made a difference. He would have helped progress the future and finally get Lazio into more of a younger squad that they need.
Yeah, I agree. I'll talk a little bit about the game, the second half, yeah, from yesterday. Um, I thought, as I did a podcast previously, hopefully it comes out later today. We were suggesting that maybe Lazio made some of the subs at the wrong time in the second half and gone chasing a little bit too early. Do you sort of agree?
I'm actually going to pull up the actual timeline of the game just to get an idea, because it's a good question.
Because Marici came off for Pereira, Lulic came off for Fares.
Okay, so the first change that was made was at the hour mark, and that was Lulic for Luis Felipe, like you said, and Marici for Andres Pereira. I think that was the right timing for the Luis Felipe one for Lulic. Actually, no, yeah, that's right. That made sense because Maricic went to the left.
To the left, yeah.
And then you had Pereira come in up top with Immobile. And I thought that as soon as Pereira came on, he gave that jolt that they were missing, that speed, that spark. And the problem was, I just think that even when he came on, he still was effective, but Immobile had two chances, I think,
To
once he
Johnson,
came
yeah,
on.
Fisato saved, yeah.
So it did give Immobile a spark, but at times it kind of Immobile was already out of the game. Like he just didn't have that kick going for him. It's unfortunate. And then you got two more changes that comes. Fades comes on for Matosic, which is fine. Like you got to do what you got to do to try to change it up. It's fine. Here's where I didn't like Radu for Casado. I think that's where a Chirby has to come out if he's injured, like you said. I think he picked up a knock in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. It's when he slipped early in the half and he kind of pulled something.
Yeah.
So, and then after those two subs, you got Pedro who scores, and Rena has to be better on that goal. Like Strakos is always going to be my guy. I think he's been mistreated very poorly this season, and I don't blame him if he wants to leave after next season or if he leaves this summer. Like this is a guy who's given everything in the last 4 years for Lazio, has helped them win numerous games, succeed trophies, and it's kind of gone south. But apparently there's something wrong with his knee and doesn't have cartilage or something. But I don't know if that's even true. Like I'd rather get it from the actual sources, but whatever it may be, it hasn't been good for him. And on Wednesday, he showed what he can offer to Lazio, and he should have started yesterday. Rena's good, but he's not good enough to be starting 20 games in a row. That's the difference for me.
Do you think it's his age as well? He's a veteran goalkeeper, and he's normally in the last few years he's been mainly used as a backup number two. I would say at the end at Liverpool when he went to Napoli and when he went to Bayern. And also, he was at AC Milan for a little bit, wasn't he? Before he went to Lazio. So he's been mainly as a backup, but then this season he's been thrown into the deep end.
No, for sure. But Radu is not the guy who should be coming off. I don't know if Radu was just tired. Neither of those two guys, one of those two guys stays on and Chirby comes off. That's how I see it. And then after 4 minutes later, they score. But that's not because of the defending, but because what happens now, Chirby takes a yellow 87th minute. He got 2 yellows. He's out for the next game, which doesn't really matter anymore. But the point is that he's on a yellow. He's not playing to that same level that he was prior to taking the yellow. And the only problem is he took it so early, the 23rd minute, that he became vulnerable a lot of the time. He was getting beaten way too easily. And then you got Savage who comes out last because I think that was out of respect, where he was injured already, and I guess Inzaghi just wanted to make sure that nothing happened to him.
He didn't take another knock in the face, and it could add some more damage. Yeah, that's overall, what did you think of the second half of Lazio? Because bar the changes, it did work a little bit, but then Pedro scored it. To be honest, I thought it was a good goal, but he got away from his marker quite easily. I don't know who was marking. Was it Luis Alberto that got put to the floor? Was it
Honestly,
Milinkovic-Savic or Lucas Leiva? One of the three.
Oh, Lucas Leiva was all over the map yesterday. He looked good at times. He looked bad at times.
Yeah.
A lot of his challenge, I noticed a lot of his challenges that he won but didn't win, where he won it but never got full possession of the ball.
Then gave it away.
Not even just give it away. It was just in a position where Roma was able to still win it. They were just more physical and containing possession. I love Leiva, but he can't play. He can't play to the level like he used to. I'm surprised we kept him out for a whole 90 minutes. I was really impressed. As the game wore on, I think he was kind of gassed. He can't play 90 minutes like he used to. I think that prior to Pedro's goal, that's when the momentum was coming on for Lazio. There was a good 10, 15 minutes. That since the subs, like you said, since the subs of Pereira, that was where everything turned around for them. And then from there, Pedro scored at the right time and just killed the momentum, and that was it. Like, it's you got to capitalize on your chances. And I think Savage should have done better in the first half when he has that clear break. He never needed to do that chip.
To hit it first time or take a touch and then hit your laces through the ball. I do completely agree on both that he should have scored, and also Roma did score at the right time, like right before half time, and then after a little bit of play where Lazio were looking to get into the game and were looking to be a bit more intricate with the style of football that Inzaghi has implemented on the team. And I was a bit nervous because when Pereira came on, I thought, we could be in trouble here because our backline hasn't been stretched that much. There was the Immobile back heel with Fasato making a really, really good save. That was so instinctive. I think that was the first time that Lazzari got in behind the fullback, as the wing back. And then Frisato had to come out again with Immobile as he got in from the left-hand side. But as you said, Pedro came in and then scored that brilliant goal, which I think you would say that Pepe Reina was a bit slow to get to. And then Roma sort of dominated in the last 10, 15 minutes where it could have been a bit more, with Villar having a shot which deflected just wide. There was a couple of blocked incidents. And then Acerbi picked up the second yellow as Edin Dzeko got the better of him at the end. And then as Roma ran out worthy winners. So both teams basically hold one victory against each other, and then Lazio go ahead on the head-to-head. It doesn't really matter because Lazio are a few points ahead of Roma. What were your final thoughts on the derby display for Lazio?
Actually, firstly, was that Dzeko's last Rome derby?
It looks, by the end of it, it certainly looks like it, because he got a little bit of a standing ovation from the players and all that. In my inkling, it looked like it. I think others do tend to agree. I think his love affair with Roma seems to be coming to an end.
Okay. Is he a free this summer, or?
I think he's got 1 year left.
Okay. They'll sell him then. They'll get something for him and that's it. They'll take...
He's on €7.5 million a year.
You'll be surprised who would take that. It's only 1 year. You're not taking it. That's nothing compared to Ronaldo wages. So that's still, or even like Rabiot, where he still has like 4 years left on his contract or 3. Yeah. So I see him gone, and I think it's kind of the player's decision that he wants to leave now and win somewhere, compared to being held back for another season where he knows that the club is taking a different direction and his direction is no longer involved with the team. I can see that. But as for Lazio and thoughts on the game, like I said, coaching, poor decisions. You know what? My takeaway was this, though. Sergei Milinkovic-Savic and what he truly means to Lazio, I have to say. Like, I last summer I said that Immobile should be the captain of Lazio. As the season's progressed, I've seen more reason to believe that this is Savage's team, that he should be the sole captain, the leader, and Immobile should be the vice. And now I know that there's stats and what Immobile has done in the last 5 years, but being a striker and wearing the armband is not always a good thing because it kind of takes the pressure. It applies more pressure on them. Not only do you have to score, you need to deliver expectations in order to lead your team properly and show the right character.
Mm.
And I've seen that with far more often with Savage, of like playing with a broken nose, just giving consistent performances, always trying, even when his team's down. Like this guy just never stops. I notice with, and I'm not saying Immobile never stops either, but I've just seen that Savage has really grown, and he was the only guy who showed up yesterday for most of the game. And the problem was in the second half, he can only give so much as the game wore on. He hasn't probably been training that much this week because of his injury. So in the first half, he was the most effective player, and that to me, a lot of people might not like when you hear that why Immobile is the all-time leader. And yeah, those stats are nice, but stats doesn't really show you what kind of leader you really are. As an individual player, yeah, he's fantastic. As a leader, does he have the qualities? I'm still on the fence of that. So, and then, like I said, decisions, substitutes, even not even just the subs, even the starters. Like just some of the questions of having Maricic in the back, I would have probably gone with Patrick on the right side, if anything, maybe. I know that Patrick hasn't been at best, but maybe Patrick starting on the right, fresh, hasn't been playing a lot. You put Maricic up top, who's much quicker than Lulic, could have helped a lot. Up front, like we said, Pereira. This was a team that was lacking speed yesterday, and then you can see it down the left wing. You can see it up front. You can see it in the back. Like, it is what it is. I wish that there was a better vibe to this game, especially for as a Laziale, where just the intensity. Losing's one thing, like I'll say, but when you don't show up and you lose,
it's bad.
And it's bad, especially in a derby. And I guarantee you, Roma fans felt the same way in the first meeting.
Yeah.
So, you know what's funny though? The same thing happened last year, where the first fixture Lazio managed to tie 1-1.
Yeah.
And then the second fixture, you guys managed to tie 1-1, and it was complete where we were the better team in the first one and somehow almost lost. You were the better team in the second one and somehow almost lost. And then the same thing happened this year. And I noticed that neither team has been able to give two good performances in the derby in 1 year.
Yeah.
And that was even the case before the year before too, when we won 3-0 the second game and you guys won 3-0 the first game.
Yeah. It's always seems to be where one team always wins their home games, and then you get a year where there's two shutouts. Like in 2019-2020 season, it was the first game was the second weekend of the season in early September, where Kolarov scored a penalty, I think it was, and then who scored for Lazio?
Alberto.
Albert, yeah, it was quite close range, wasn't it? And then Roma nearly nicked it at the end. I think they hit the post twice. Lazio hit the post 4 times in that game. And in the reverse fixture in January, who scored? It might have been Dzeko. I think it might have been Dzeko.
Dzeko, and I think that Cherby scored that own goal, that crappy goal he scored.
Yeah, Paul Lopez copped it up, and that dented his confidence. And then Kluivert had a penalty given and then was rightly overturned by VAR. Don't want to talk about VAR this weekend in Italy. That's a story for a different day. But yeah, how shit it is. But the derbies of the last couple of years have been quite cagey, and always one team does really well in one game and then totally flops in the other. We've seen it this season where Lazio absolutely bossed the game in January on that Friday night. I was so buzzing for that game, and then Roma didn't turn up. Lazio just absolutely annihilated them, and it should have been 5 or 6. And then yesterday, I think the roles were reversed, where I think I was a bit dreading it because Roma's form has been horrific this year, but it was good to end Paulo Fonseca's home reign with a victory. But then Lazio didn't really bother turning up for the second half because I don't know if the games have really caught up with them, because the schedule in the last 6 weeks has been ridiculous. Actually, in all fairness, it's been ridiculous this year. They're trying to cramp in 10 months of football into about 8, and both teams have suffered. And as you've seen the injury list for Roma, it's going to be the same for Lazio. Um, it's just been horrific. But yeah, I totally agree with like one team does well one game, and then the other team does the better in the next game. You don't get a strong vibe of both teams one team doing really well over the 2 games over the season. That hasn't happened for a good few years. That hasn't happened since, I would imagine, Rudy Garcia or Luciano Spalletti was at Roma, and then Stefano Pioli was at Lazio.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time. There's always one team doing really well, and then the other team does the better in the return leg. My final question on the game overall is, what's next for Lazio for next season? Do you feel Inzaghi will be in charge? Do you think he will get tempted away? Because I know he's been linked with a couple of jobs in England. You were quite cautious yesterday when you spoke to me via direct message.
I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves. I know that Tottenham people say that they'll spend more than Lazio, which they will. That's not it.
It's the Premier League money. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but they're in a lot of situations, in a big situation too, where Jose Mourinho never had that spending either. When he was there, like, he was very limited. So
yeah, I think that's also to the stadium debt that they got, the new stadium, the Tottenham Stadium.
That's what I wanted to say with the whole stadium thing. It all depends. He's never gone on record and said that he wants to leave. The thing is that this may have been a distraction to Lazio this season, where it may have hindered some of their performances. Maybe the players not knowing what's going on. It could be that, but like he said yesterday, he's optimistic that he'll be staying with Lazio. I never buy into what media really has to say. I'd be more convinced that he would join Juventus than he joined Tottenham. Like, I'm serious. I can see that. And I also saw that Sarri now is linked to Lazio along with Allegri, but who isn't linked to those two players? If it was me, I'm on the fence. In the last 3 games, I kind of seen a different Lazio side where they just look very uninspired. And I kind of think, has Inzaghi taken this team as far as he could? But then you got to look at the same fact that look what Inzaghi has done with so little. And if he was given a better team, maybe he would do more. So I'm always going to back Inzaghi. If he leaves, I hope he does better for himself. If he stays, I'm not against it either, because there's very few managers who I believe right now can do better than him with what is offered at his disposal. So I guess only time will tell. If you were to ask me if he's leaving or not, I still don't think so. I think he stays. The person who I do see probably more likely to leave is Tade. And there have been recent time that where Lotito has gone on the record saying that he hasn't been impressed with the transfer market of Tade. And like I said, this is not a team that can offer 100 million, but when Lotito's actually opening up the bank book, you got to be ready to be spending properly, because he's the type of guy who wants to see a return on his investment. Like that's just the way he is, and he hasn't been seeing that. So I could see a new sporting director coming into Lazio. That is for sure. So I would be more confident in that happening than Inzaghi leaving. I don't see both leaving, possibly one. But for Inzaghi, since that's the main question, I see him staying.
I hope he stays, because he's done a really, really good job for Lazio. I'm not saying this as a Roma fan. I think he's actually done a really, really good job with the tools that he's got at his dispense. But if he does go on, I think he'll go on to do really well in the Premier League. If that's his nature calling. Spurs, they might have Daniel Levy's got an open checkbook, and especially with the stadium, and he's got Harry Kane, who could be leaving or could be staying. Who knows? He could be going anywhere else in the Premier League. Leicester be a good club for him if Brendan Rodgers decides to go somewhere else. They just beat Chelsea in the FA Cup. Well run, a good family club. Won the Premier League a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summer, especially actually for both Roman clubs, with Mourinho coming in and with yourselves. If he goes, and if any big players, if any offers for big players coming in, and with your owner deciding to sell the other club that has come up through their Serie B. I don't want to talk any more about the derby. I'll probably bore you and don't want to venture any more about it. I just want to talk about your podcast, Calcio Connection with Alex. How did that come across, and what are you guys thinking of doing for the future? Because it's
So
really
that
good. What do you guys think? So how did that come across with you and Alex for the Calcio Connection? And also, what's next for you guys for the podcast?
so that actually happened on his timeline. I don't know how I actually was following him, but I would always see that he had like this radio show he worked for, I think 2 years ago, and I forgot what the radio show actually was called, but he would always have like segments. If you're interested in calling in, you can call in, offer your expertise. So I kind of like reached out to him on several occasions, and said I would love to come on, maybe talk about a little bit of soccer, could talk a little bit about hockey, whatever sports. Sorry, North American sports. So it became like a Thursday thing where I would call in every week, and he would give me like, we would discuss a list of questions, and I would give my answers, and it became more routinary, like more custom, like every week. And we came to the conclusion after where I was like, we should start a podcast. If we're always going to be doing this every week, instead of doing small segments, we should start a pod. And he was like, yeah, I've always thought about doing one too. So we kind of got into it. And I was on a separate podcast at the time, but it just, things didn't fall through. But luckily this was happening at the same time, and it actually worked out well. And we kind of paired up well and kind of like offset each other. So it's been almost a season now. I want to say season and a half. This was our first full season. We did half a season last year, which was nice. And now for the future, not a clue, but I think at the moment, continuing the podcast and doing more live shows and trying to get more people engaged so they can interact with us. So that's been nice. We were doing more Skype and then do pre-records. Yeah, now we do StreamYard, exactly.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of more, you get more people engaged into kind of allow them to like say what they feel, their opinions. So it's nice.
I do feel like with podcasts, because we've both been on Serie A Sit Down, and they've done amazing work. There's more Calcio podcasts out there now, not just team-based ones where like you get quite a lot of Juventus ones, AC Milan ones, Inter ones. There's quite a few for Roma. I imagine there's quite a few for Lazio, where it's evolved, where there's a load now for Serie A as a whole, where I think there's probably about 8 or 9 that I know of, and it's good to see that podcasts on Serie A and Italian football have grown. I didn't see this 5 or 6 years ago because I don't think the coverage was out there worldwide. But now it's really, really good to see. And you guys are doing really well. I managed to catch a couple episodes in the past on YouTube when I'm working from home and on something to listen to for the final hour or so of my day, just to get through a long, arduous day working from home. And it gets you through it. You guys talk about really good stuff, and you got your own stories, which everyone talks about, and try not to break the internet with your stories.
That was more of a kind of keep people happy through a difficult
Tough
pandemic.
time.
So yeah, so that was more of the idea of doing Jerry Tyne stories and getting people more not sad and depressed and just something to laugh about and just remembering life. Like, but yeah, it was just something I kind of pitched and Alex really liked. So it did well actually. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. I'm not going to mention the one live on record. I'll tell you post pod. I think it was the one when Nemo was on, and you didn't get any toilet paper. I'm just going to leave it at that. People, when I post this, people will get the right conception of what you did. But yeah, my final point is yourself on social media. You like to give it out and you like to dish it out. We were talking pre-recording that social media has got really toxic over the last couple of years, especially I would say over the last 18 to 24 months, where it you can't really say anything without people just taking it for granted. Sorry, just taking like having a staunch shit show about it. But you like to give it out and you like to dish it out, and also you like to give the middle finger. What started the middle finger?
You know what? I guess it was just some sort of. That's a good question, actually. I would love to go back on my timeline and see where the first one ever happened. I guess that when people banter, I thought it was a good idea just to give someone the finger and say, "Yeah, your team's shit. This is what I think," and you give the finger. So I kind of started doing different expressions, different reactions. I even did a slow motion one.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And credit to Carlo Garganese, who actually has kind of pushed me to do it more often because he thinks it's actually funny and it gives a different vibe on Twitter, and how it's just good banter. You get a lot of reactions to it, which is nice to see. And he always gives me different pitches into like how to use it. So I've actually like as a joke, I've mentioned he's my agent because he promotes the finger more than I do. Like he's the guy. He'll message me tomorrow morning and say, "Hey, who's our next enemy, or who's our next person we target?" So it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, but it's all in good humor. But when people take it out of context, it makes me laugh. I guess those are more of the passionate fans who don't want to see their the Ronaldos get disrespected, and the Juventus want the glamorous. They're still bitter that they lost this season. That's the problem. They don't know what losing's like.
True. I will ask, how many camera roll pictures of yourself with the middle finger have you got on your phone? Is that just? I really just.
I want to say maybe 10. I use a lot.
Not too bad. That's not too bad.
I'd say 10. 10, maybe 10. That's it. I use a lot of the same ones where it just keeps it easier. Like, I guess once you have 5, they're all the same, but I guess it's all about the timing of when you post it out. But it's nice to change it up every like so often, and you give a new one. But it's funny when I use the Lazio ones. That's where people kind of chirp me and say, "This is a guy who supports Lazio," and I start laughing.
If you give it, you got to learn how to take it on social media. That's my motto. That's how I've been. It's got me through life, and I gather that's the same. If you learn to give it, you've got to learn to dish it.
No, you're right. You can't play one-way street. I agree with you.
Shall we end this with a middle finger salute?
Yeah, it's no problem, man.
There you go.
You're a good guy, Scott.
Thank you very much. Jerry, thank you very much for joining me. I don't want to take any more time off for your Sunday, I would say afternoon for you in Canada. It's almost 6:30 for me here in the UK, and I've got my Sunday dinner to look forward to. If you want to plug your socials and your podcast, go away.
Yeah, so you can follow me at jmancini8, Calcio Pod for the Calcio Connection. And just been writing for the Laziale and Serpents of Madonnina. So I kind of started writing for Inter as well. It's given me a brighter following, more viewers, so that I kind of try to open it up because there's not much with Lazio, whereas compared to the other bigger clubs. So I branched off as well, which just helped me. But overall, that's what I've been doing.
Do you find it a bit therapeutic writing? For me, I do as well. It just helps with the mind and stuff like that, especially with also doing podcasts and doing stuff like this. It's quite therapeutic, and it's also very good for the mental health, especially over here. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. I'm quite open about it. I'm very open about mental health, and I feel writing and doing podcasts is quite good for it and quite therapeutic. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially, I find writing more than podcasting, just because I'm by myself and no
Yeah,
one's bothering me. Whereas the
yeah,
podcast does work. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely does work and it gets your mind off everything. But I just find that with writing, you're in your own mindset and you just do what you feel is best just for yourself. You're not
mm,
arguing with anybody. You express how you feel and that's it. I agree with you. Like writing has helped me so much during the pandemic. Um, if the pandemic didn't exist, I probably wouldn't be writing
as much.
as much. Yeah, I would be
Yeah,
doing other stuff with my life where
yeah.
you'd be having functions, you'd be having events, and like you
Going to
instead of me
sport.
doing yeah,
Yeah,
like instead of me
sporting
doing
events. Yeah,
like I was supposed to do TSC live last year. I went to the season opener and I did the game, and that was a really great experience. But then after the pandemic hit, and it ruined everything for me. Where so I always look back and say, heck, I actually did a game and I got to see three players and I got to go right outside the dressing room and it was like, wow, this is a good experience. So I never take things for granted when I look at, well,
yeah,
when you're given something and you see what it means, like it's nice. So I think the one thing I would do if things were back to normal is I would love to do TFC games again live and that would probably be taking me away from Serie A, but just being at live games means so much more. Like when you're always constantly writing, even if you don't get paid for it, it's just the experience and having more reason to be there when you're doing it for the game, right? So
yeah.
like,
Completely agree. It's like for me, I found writing very therapeutic over the last 6 months. I do it for two websites. I preview games, do podcasts, do stuff on YouTube. It helps with the mind. It helps with the mental health. It just helps you with like stuff going forward. It gives you ideas of like maybe I should write about this. Maybe I should write about that. Oh, this is a great idea. I could write something about this. And then you're always your mind, you're thinking about stuff you could do in the next couple of weeks and you're pitching ideas to yourself. And for me, that's been really, really helpful in the last 6 months because for me, October was like no go. I had a bit of a mental, not a breakdown. I had a moment where I was struggling for a bit because the second, like, there was just like months before the second lockdown and it hit me. But after that, after doing some writing, doing some therapy, it's done me the world of good. I don't mean to end this thing on a bad note, but as
no,
mental health is very important, guys. Over here, it's Mental Health Awareness Week, and I urge people to open up. And if you see a mate who's really really struggling, just drop them a message to see if they're okay, and actually just to ask, "Are you really okay?" Because people will go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'm fine," but deep down inside, they're really, really struggling, and then they need someone to open up to. But just that really do ask them to see if they're doing okay. And I will end that at that. Jerry, thank you very much for joining me on this Sunday. I didn't want to take any more of your time. I didn't mean to ramble on for the last couple of minutes. We've got on just a side track. You can follow me at Scott_Monroe. I'm aiming to do this a bit more often on YouTube. It's something I wanted to do over the last couple of years, but now I've just got the time working from home during a pandemic. There's really nothing much else to do apart from go out for a walk or go out do a little bit of shopping. But Jerry, thank you very much for joining me.
no, thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
No worries, and take care. Farewell.